Welcome to Albuquerque Real Estate Talk, episode 515, mid-December 2024. It's Tego without Tracy for the Albuquerque Real Estate Talk. We have a special guest today, and I'll introduce you here in a second. If you need to reach us, we are Venturi Realty Group at Real Broker, 505-448-8888. So we are talking Santa Fe today. We have Bunny Terry joining us. Bunny is a longtime realtor, longtime resident of Santa Fe. I mean, that's your hometown, or
No.
no?
I'm a lifetime resident of New Mexico,
Okay,
but only 12 years in Santa Fe. I
got it.
actually raised my kids in Albuquerque.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
got it.
yeah,
But your family's from northern New Mexico,
yeah.
correct? Okay,
Well,
kind.
northeastern New
Okay,
Mexico.
got it. All right, we'll get into that. Anyway,
Yes.
Bunny, introduce yourself.
Well, as Tigo said, I'm Bunny Terry, and I have lived in New Mexico most of my life. I had a
Mhm,
couple of brief moves elsewhere, and I was always ready to come home, but
got it.
I've been a realtor for almost 21 years, and I mean, there are a lot of other things that I am, but for the purposes of this show, I am a realtor and a New Mexican.
Well, you do, yeah. Well, yeah, and we may have time to get all of that, all the stuff you do, and how connected you are in the New Mexico world, and yeah, Santa Fe is a special place, and I guess my first question would be, what got you there, and what keeps you there?
Well, I honestly wanted to live there all my life. When I was 6 years old, my parents took me from Logan, where I grew up, over between, Tucumcari and Clayton, and we came through Santa Fe in 1966 when I
Oh
was
my
6 years
gosh,
old, and that was the year that the Roundhouse was built, the new Capitol building, and I stood in the rotunda and I thought, "Someday I'm gonna live here." So
what was that? It reminds me of the Jim Morrison biography movie, where he talks
right?
about traveling through New Mexico, and anyway, that whole experience. So yeah, yeah.
So that's all my life. I thought, "Well, I'm gonna end up in Santa Fe," and, I raised my kids in Albuquerque, and my son went to the academy. We were here for about 12 years, and then we moved home because my daughter was in junior high, and we lived in a small town for a few years, and when she went to college, I thought, I'm going."
Yeah.
And I had no idea what I was gonna do other than I had a real estate license, and, I had a couple of hiccups there. That's where I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and survived and thrived, and now I have this
And
amazing office downtown with a
you
bunch
wrote
of
a you
amazing
wrote a
realtors.
book about
I did
some
write a
of that.
book.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, and we'll get to that. We'll get to
Yes.
that. My story about New Mexico is similar.
Mhm.
Now, I'm a Midwest kid, right? Grew up in Ann Arbor,
Mhm.
Michigan,
Wow.
and when our family, it was in the 70s, I think it was 72. So I was probably only 8 or 9 years. Yeah, I was probably like 8 or 9 years old. We did a road trip out west and drove through this area, actually spent some time in Santa Fe and Taos, and I just remember the warm sun and the big, bold, blue skies, and I think a lot of people have that story about New Mexico, and there's something about it, and, sometimes you can't even put your finger on it, right?
Well, I have a podcast called I
Yeah,
Love New Mexico, and almost everybody I talk to has that same story, and, everybody says that New Mexico will either embrace you or spit you out, and all the people I talk to were embraced and were seemed kind of surprised. I mean, I think New Mexico is a surprise to a lot of people.
it is. I do believe that New Mexico is still very much undiscovered by much of our country,
Mhm.
especially East Coast wise. They think, you've had those conversations where people are like, "Well, oh, you're in Albuquerque? Oh yeah, I've been to Phoenix before," and it's like,
Right.
well, yeah, not quite the same.
Except at one point, I was in North Carolina, and they said, "Oh, New Mexico, I've been to Cancun before." So, we
Yeah,
have that as well.
we have that as well. All right, what so you're in Santa Fe, and you're a real estate broker, you're very engaged in the community, but what keeps you in Santa Fe? What is it that just sucked you in and keeps you there?
Well, besides the obvious stuff, which is that it's beautiful and that we have 4 really distinct seasons and There's a lot to explore and do. It is surprisingly a community where people are very whether it's people who have been there, whose families have been there for 3 or 400 years, or people who just retired there, people are really the ones that I know are really engaged in the community, and it's a community where you can be, somebody who's been there forever or somebody who just showed up 6 months ago. You can find a niche. It That's been my experience, and that's why I'll stay there is because it's a place where I've been really able to build a big community. I'm very social, and I'm very, interested in giving back to wherever I live, and I gotta tell you, the food is amazing, as
Well,
you well
yeah,
know.
yeah,
So
of course.
so
Yeah.
all of that, all
R
of that. I've never they'll carry me out
Well,
in a bag. Yeah,
it's obviously a quirky town.
it is.
Is
It
that fair to
is.
say?
Yes,
Is this not offensive, I hope, but no, I mean, it's, it's like the city different for a reason, right? That
it
it got
is.
that name for a reason,
Absolutely.
yes. And so that leads to my next question. What is it about Santa Fe that makes it different really than I was gonna say anywhere in New Mexico, but kinda anywhere in the country? I mean,
Uh So w so there are some positives and some negatives about
okay.
what's so different, and I'll hit the negatives first. I mean, there are a lot of people that view Santa Fe as a very expensive place to live, and it certainly, in terms of housing, is more expensive than anywhere else in New Mexico and probably in the Southwest if you take out California. So it is an expensive place to live. However, it's this really interesting it's always gonna be a small city because we're hemmed in on all sides by pueblos or the river or the mountains,
Yeah,
and so it's gonna stay. I think that the metropolitan area is under 80,000 still.
yeah,
So it's still a small town. It still is a place where, unlike the others, Albuquerque and Las Cruces, and those are both cities I really love, but those are getting to be cities where you can't go to the grocery store and see somebody you know. And and that's what's different about from other cities in New Mexico, and it's just culturally a little more like visiting we have hundreds of galleries and
yeah,
a really vibrant art scene in terms of theater and music. There's live music in Santa Fe every single night. So for a city of 80,000 people, that makes it really different from other cities that size.
yeah, yeah, no,
Yeah.
it is, and, the thing that's interesting is, here in Albuquerque, we're an hour away.
Mhm.
It but it's a world apart, right? It's very different, and it's great for us in Albuquerque. We forget that we can go on vacation and take an hour drive, and we're on vacation, and we're
Right.
like at this, this different place, this different world,
It
really,
is.
than what we experience here. What are you seeing? So you're a realtor working in Santa Fe. What are you seeing that's bringing people to Santa Fe to live? That to live and settle down.
It's still by some standards, a lot of my there was one year in 2022, 87% of my clients, my buyer clients came from the Bay Area.
Wow.
So for people who are relocating from, the West Coast especially, it's still really affordable. Our just I think just this week, our listing price went to, like, 800 just over 800,000.
I could tell you.
I yeah, I think
Of course I can.
yeah,
So, like, the what I saw is median list price, if you look at all single family detached homes in Santa Fe right now, as of this week, $946,000. That's a median list price.
right.
And then another stat I looked at was Zillow's home value, where they
Mhm.
look at values of all the homes in an entire
Sure.
area, and it's 568,000 is what
Okay.
they're saying. So, does that sound about right?
It does, and I think some of that's because more luxury homes are going on the market right now
So the
than
list price is higher
the
because
list
yeah,
price is
yeah,
higher
yeah.
just because of what's going on the market in the last 3 months.
So it's we started to go down the real estate road here. Here in Albuquerque, for $2 million, you can buy like an extraordinary house, right?
Right, we talk about that all the time at my
Yeah,
house.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so in Santa Fe, I mean, obviously, for $2 million, you can get a really nice house, but you have $10 million homes in Santa Fe, right? I mean,
We do. In fact, I was looking this morning and we've just had a couple come on the market at like 17 million. I mean, sometimes they're compounds that are close to Canyon Road or something out north of town that's got a house and a couple of guest houses. But yeah, it's not unheard of to have
yeah,
a 22 million dollar
yeah,
property.
that's like Scottsdale, Paradise Valley,
Right,
Arizona prices. Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah. So, well, back to real estate. So, uh, because there is obviously a disparity, right? The state of
There
New
is.
Mexico is housed there, right? The government of New
Right.
Mexico is in Santa Fe, and we know those jobs aren't necessarily six-figure jobs.
No.
And so there's got to be that challenge with affordability. I know we have affordability challenges here for housing in Albuquerque, but I assume it's tough there.
It's really tough, and the majority of my personal clients are cash,
Yeah,
which is hard for somebody who works for state government. I mean, it's hard to compete against that. We do have, especially team members of mine have sold a lot of houses in the 4 to 650, 4 to $700,000 range. You've gotta it's very competitive,
yeah,
and you've gotta have I would say, you've gotta have a really savvy real estate broker to get into one of those houses, but we're closing them every week.
yeah, yeah.
So
So they
we're
are
finding
there.
them.
Yeah,
They're there, absolutely. In fact, one of the misconceptions that we always get when somebody walks in the office is, "Well, I wish I could live here, but, I'm not a millionaire." Like, we sell a lot of houses to people who aren't millionaires. You just have to know how to do it, and,
yeah.
you have to be
One
prepared as a buyer,
Yeah,
right?
one thing there, you have a little more high density, I think, than we do here in
Mhm.
Albuquerque, like condominium wise,
Right?
which I think opens up that opportunity.
Sure. Sure, and we have D.R. Horton and
Mhm.
Pulte who are building homes in that under $700,000 range, but Tego, 700 grand is still a lot of money.
No, yeah, it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
and again, here in Albuquerque, you can buy a lot of house for 700.
Right. Right.
And so it is, and of course we see that here. People that live in northern Rio Rancho, Bernalillo, that commute every day
A
because
lot.
they have to.
A
They
lot.
they just have to.
I think that and this may be anecdotal, I'm trying to remember if I actually saw this in print somewhere, but like 90% of our police force doesn't live in Santa Fe
Yeah,
because they can't afford to,
yeah. That
which is too bad.
And that's, I think, true in a lot of
I
places.
think it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
Yeah.
We could go down the affordability
We
rabbit hole, but
could.
we
Yes.
won't because,
No.
that's
It's a nationwide
it's
issue.
a nationwide
It
issue.
is.
It's everywhere, and there's no simple solution. If there was a simple solution, it would have been done already, and it's not because, big corporate entities are buying up all the homes. It's
No,
like, yeah, okay, there's some of that, but that's the it's so deep, and
and
it's a hard one. It's
complex.
complex,
Yeah,
and it's a hard one to unwrap.
it is.
What do you see as challenges? I mean, we're talking about affordability, but other than that, what do you see as challenges for people that are either buying or selling in the Santa Fe market?
Well, the buying part is easy to pinpoint. When somebody comes to town, they generally have, a misconception about where they wanna live. I have a lot of people who will call and say, "You know what? I wanna live close to the plaza, and I wanna have, at least I wanna have a garage, and I want to, I wanna do this I wanna do it for under 350 grand." And
Yeah,
so I always there's an education process where so you don't have to be a millionaire to live here, but you can't find what you're looking for in the areas that you may dream of living. And I think this is, I visit places all the time and we're near downtown or
hmm,
we stay, when we go to Scottsdale, we stay in areas and I'm like, well, I want to buy a house right here. And I think the challenge is getting buyers to agree to look elsewhere. I mean, El Dorado's a great place to live.
yeah,
Rancho Viejo is an amazing place to live. You're close to the community college. So the misconception piece is that everybody thinks they need to live in the urban center, and and you don't. And I'm always talking to buyers about, let's just go for a drive. Let's go. Let's look at, I mean, if you want to live in a place where you can't hear your neighbors cough, you can do that and it'll be less expensive than what you're thinking about. So that's a challenge.
That no, and I think that's a fair point. And I think for people new to Santa Fe, let's be honest, the road system, it's it's a it's somebody took a bunch of spaghetti and threw it on a map.
That's what it looks like.
It is so getting a I mean, if you don't know the areas,
Mhm.
I think about, some people will say, "Well, I'm a licensed real estate broker, so I can do real estate anywhere." And they're like, "Well, I think I've got somebody who wants to buy in Santa Fe." I said, "Stay away. If you don't
Right.
know, if you're from Albuquerque and you don't quite, if you haven't been in Santa Fe and know your way around and know the neighborhoods, because it is quirky. Quirky, is that a good word? I don't know.
No,
Or
it's
is
it
it
is
just a
quirky.
mix?
It's a it was built like a lot of Mexican cities around the plaza.
Yeah.
So instead of it being laid out in a nice grid, like, Salt Lake City is one of the easiest places in the world to find your way around because it's laid out on a
Yeah,
grid.
Phoenix, same. And
Yeah,
well, on the heights here, it is that way. Yeah,
right.
in Albuquerque. Yeah.
And there are no grids.
Yeah.
Even in new neighborhoods, everything's on a curve. So and frequently GPS will still take me far afield from where I meant to go. We invite people to our house,
Yeah.
and you've been to our house,
Yeah.
and it's like, "How hard can this be to find?" And they'll call, and they'll be, like, way across town. So that's tricky, and and I just
Do
go
you
ahead.
let me ask this. Do you find that there are hidden gems, like neighborhood-wise, that people just don't know about unless you
Yes,
show it to them?
yes, and the ones I mentioned before, I mean, if you've never been to Santa Fe, you really should go and take a look at El Dorado. I love El Dorado. I think it's cool. People get a lot of house for the money. You're on more than an acre. The night skies are amazing. They have a great community out there. They have all the amenities.
Okay, excuse my ignorance. Just geographically, where is El Dorado?
So
If
it
I'm at the
is
plaza,
if
where am
you're
I?
at the plaza, it is about 17 miles southeast. No, I'm sorry, 17 minutes. I don't
Okay.
know how many miles it is,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you get on I-25 like you're going to Denver, and then you turn south on 285
Okay.
towards I-40, and it is a community of about 3,500 homes that was started in the '70s. It was a ranch,
Mhm.
and now they have grocery stores, but you're still only 17 minutes. I mean, it's an Uber ride downtown.
Yeah.
People miss that, and then there are hidden gems within the city of old homes. You have Stam homes here, don't you? Or do you not? So Alan Stam was a guy who
Oh, no.
came home after World War II, and he brilliantly decided to start building single-family homes, and those houses my husband's family owned one. They bought
Mm,
one in, like, 1957. It was $8,900. So and now those houses are you can still get into one for in the 5s and 6s and 7s, but they're incredibly well built. It's a real neighborhood. It's kind of a Cleaver neighborhood, and yet they're they have Kiva fireplaces and hardwood floors, and
yeah.
if they were ordered, they were custom homes in the '50s. So that's those Stam neighborhoods are gems and really affordable.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of pockets, like everywhere, you just want a realtor who knows how to find them.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a good thing. So let's go to the other, not really the other end, but luxury. Like we talked
Yes.
briefly here that, there's 10, 12, 15, 17 million dollar
Mhm.
homes in Santa Fe. When you think luxury in Santa Fe, what are you thinking price-wise?
Well, over a million, probably 1.2 to 4 or 5 million.
Mhm.
You can buy a luxury home, what I consider a luxury home for around a million. It may need some upgrades,
Mhm.
but you can still get into neighborhoods that are considered luxury. I just sold a house. We just closed last week on a house that was just over 2.5 million. And what made that house luxury was that it sat on a 2.5 acre lot with incredible views. Really, really modern architecture, but that's not what determines luxury. I will tell people that one of the misconceptions I hear all the time is that people think that Santa Fe is all adobe and kivas and vigas and very traditional style.
Yeah,
And I would
yeah.
say any house, 95% of the homes that were built in the last 10 years are pretty contemporary, which is still I interviewed an architect for one of the houses I put on the market, and he does houses that may look really contemporary, but he said, actually, if you look at the way that pueblos are constructed and like real pueblos, Native American pueblos, and you look at the clean lines and the way they're lined up with the sun, this is not a huge departure from that aesthetic. It's just different from what was being built
Yeah,
in the
that
'80s,
that that's
'70s
a
and '80s
that's a
and
really
'90s.
yeah, no, that's an interesting point, when you think about, the craftsman style houses that have a lot of extra stuff and the Victorians and the yeah.
Mhm.
But of course, in Santa Fe, you've got all those where you've got the northern New Mexico, you've got the territorials, you've
Right.
got the so yeah, it is yeah, well, it's an interesting conversation, and one of the things that makes New Mexico and Santa Fe very unique is we do have these architectural styles that you just do not see anywhere else.
Oh, no. No. No, and one thing that I have to tell buyers frequently, and I think this is true nationwide, but it's certainly true in Santa Fe, they'll say, "You know what? We'll just buy land and build." And so I have to explain, it's okay, we can do that. I mean, I'm married to a builder. I
Yeah.
know how that process works, but building cost in Santa Fe from the ground up, this is after you own your land, are 800 to $1,200 a square foot, but really in the upper part of that range. And when you start looking at those kind of prices, if you want to build a 3,500 square foot house, I'm going to tell you it's easier to buy an existing home and much less expensive.
Yeah, and that's true here too, especially when you get into the custom world, and,
Mhm.
even here in Albuquerque, the custom builders, they have all the business they need
Right.
still,
Oh, yeah.
and,
You're going to wait a while, right?
yeah, oh, you're
Yeah.
gonna wait, and it's gonna be, you know I was interviewing a designer, architect, not real anyway, but he designs houses, and when he sits down with people, he says, "Okay, do you have 2 years, right? Do you have X amount of money? Because
Mhm.
that's just to get started, here in
Mhm.
Albuquerque, if you're gonna do something custom or something, you're gonna be 500 minimum, right? Just to
Yeah.
get going. Is your marriage solid? Or if
Right.
you have
That's the
if
biggest
you have a
question.
partner, is your relationship solid with your
Right,
partner?
right.
Are you emotionally, stable? Because all of those things matter. You're married to a builder, so you know all about it. But
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it is a tough process. However, we Tracy and I talked about it a few weeks ago. We talked about building quite a bit, and I think it's something that everybody needs to do maybe once in their life
Um,
if they're up to it. But
I always thought I wanted to do that, and after living with Toby for so long, I'm like, "Wow,
yeah,
I'm good. I'm good where we are."
yeah.
Yes.
What would you say? Do you have just back to real estate a little bit, the seasonality that I mean, we see seasonality here where, this time of year, December, January
Mhm.
is generally the slowest month of the year. Is that true with you with Santa Fe as well?
There aren't as many houses going on the market right now, but there are a lot of buyers in town.
Mhm.
So, we're actually putting something new on the market on Monday, and it's a condo, in the 5s, high 5s, and she said, "I wanna be on the market right before Christmas because we have so many visitors in town through really through ski season, so through the end of February. Our slowest time is probably March through the middle of April, and then we just start
Interesting.
gearing up. March is dead. If you wanna go to Santa Fe and live like a local, come
Yeah,
in March
interesting.
because there are no lines, there's no waits,
Okay, I
yeah.
gotta write that one down.
Yeah. No.
Here, real estate wise, it really starts spinning up in March and April in
Yeah.
Albuquerque, right? But
Well, you're
that's
warmer,
well, and
right?
that's also because so much of it is just, kids are getting out of school.
Mhm.
People are like, okay, we got to get this going before next school season. And, there's just
Right.
that seasonality.
Right.
Santa Fe, I think of Santa Fe as for again, for real estate, there's a lot of second homes. Is
Mhm.
that true? Is that
Oh,
still the thing?
oh, yes.
Okay.
I live in a rare neighborhood. I live in a small subdivision of 13 homes, and there are no second homes in my neighborhood, and that's really rare. Um, the neighborhood where we just sold the $2.5 million house, about 50% of those are second homes, and it's hard to think of a house in that price range as being a second home.
Well, there's a lot of people with a lot of money out there
There
that can
are.
do that. Yeah.
There are, and so a lot of my buyers are people who come to town and buy a home about 5 years before they're gonna retire.
Mhm.
And so they come to visit 3 or 4 times a year. They loan it to friends. Most of them don't wanna rent their homes.
Mhm.
They don't wanna short term them. Some if it's financially more viable to them, certainly they're gonna find somebody who will manage a short term rental for them so that they can pay for their property. But a lot of my clients, it's a second home until they retire.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, interesting. And along that is something that we don't see a lot here is furniture conveying with the property,
mhm,
where you have the property that's fully furnished
right.
and that is just part of the sale. Is that very common?
Yes, the house that I just closed on, all of the furniture was part of the sale.
Mhm.
They took out, like, 2 paintings, and that was it. And this was a 3rd home for them. This was actually a rather somebody in their 40s. This was their 3rd home, and she was like, "Well, I just have too many homes." So they sold it. They sold all the furniture with it. We closed on another one on Thursday that sold with about 90% of the furniture, which is if you've ever I mean, not everybody does this, but if you've ever bought a second home, one of the biggest expenses is furnishing it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, that always comes up.
Yeah, so and that's very common. And I know when we have sales here in the Albuquerque market and, they wanna buy the furniture or convey the furniture, whatever, everybody's like, "How do you do that?" And it's like, "Well, let's call somebody in Santa Fe, they know."
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
yes, I do it with almost every sale.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's awesome. Again, so Bunny, I just like that, I mean, we just blew right through this. Bunny Terry, you're with the Bell tell us about
Well,
your group and your real estate
so
team and
so
everything.
because
Yeah.
I'm with such a great brokerage, we have, what's called a marketing group
Mhm.
within Real Broker, and I have 7 realtors in an office downtown, and we all collaborate, and we all work together, and then and that's Bell Tower, Santa Fe.
Yep.
But within that, I have my own team, which is 3 realtors and a marketing and operations person.
Yeah.
So and you can find us if you're hanging out in Santa Fe, you can find us on Palace Street right next to the gallery that has the dragon
Yep.
on the roof,
And you're
211
right
East
across
Palace
from the church.
from the Drury,
Oh,
sort of but
well,
across
okay.
from the Drury and the cathedral part.
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
got it, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, no, it's a great spot,
Right
and then
right down from the shed, actually,
yeah,
so
that's right,
yes.
and what's the shoe store there that Tracy
Oh,
always wants to go?
Golaire.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah, right down from that,
yes.
and how do people get a hold of you, Bunny, if they wanna reach out to you and talk real
I'm
estate or Santa
pretty
Fe?
easy. Our website is movemetosantafé.com,
Okay.
and I'm also at bunny@bunnyterry.com.
Oh, that was easy
So,
enough.
yeah,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was.
great name. I know, it's such a unique
That's
name.
the one I came with.
I know, I'm the same way. People are like, "Where'd Tego come from?" I'm like, "I don't know, that's what they just gave me, I don't know."
It is.
Anyway, so just like that, Bunny, we went right through that. This is Albuquerque Real Estate Talk with Tego and Tracy. Without Tracy this week, we had Bunny, and we talked all about Santa Fe, so it was actually Santa Fe Real Estate Talk this week.
Yes.
And, if you wanna reach us, the Albuquerque here in Albuquerque, the Venturi team, we are at 505-448-8888, and we are with Real Broker here in New Mexico. Have a great weekend.